Okay, thank you. Maybe. Okay, are we? I think we're sharing and recording. I see that little thing and it says stop share, even though there's no green, which is disconcerting. There's no green border. Okay. So let's see where we left off many days ago. I've been working on my, I've been doing the Stephen Grider React Auth stuff, which has been really fun. So that's for my personal project. Okay, so we implemented mocha.opts. We researched the exclude option for Mocha, which was implemented 16 days ago and has not yet been merged. We created tests for the add user action without an encrypted password. And we started to create and employ a password encryption function. Did we create the add user action also? Let's look and see. Yes, so I'm gonna actually edit that to say create tests and functionality for add user action without, okay, and then we started to create and employ a password encryption function. So let's see where we actually did that, probably in password.js. Let's just pick up there. Okay, so we had just this encryptPassword function, and then we needed to make a comparePassword function as well. And there was some discussion online about bcrypt versus bcryptjs, and it looked like bcryptjs had some security advantages. And since bcrypt is all about security, okay, do we trust Antoine? Let's see. Issue with bcrypt, it's slow and takes a lot of CPU. Okay, this looks very Raspberry Pi specific. Let's see if we can. Okay. You'll notice that bcrypt is more popular. Bcrypt has been out there longer. It has more versions, a bigger community of maintainers, more stars on GitHub. bcryptjs has more frequent updates, fewer dependencies, fewer, not less, fewer dependencies, more daily downloads, more weekly downloads, more monthly downloads, and fewer open pull requests. In our review, bcryptjs, well, there you go. I mean, 497,000 versus 384,000. The answer is pretty clear, I have to say. So it sounds like, I mean, just from reading these stats, it sounds like bcrypt has just been around longer, so it's historically more popular, but bcryptjs is sort of the one that's being used and better maintained. Although, interestingly, this one has a bigger community of maintainers, but again, it might just have accumulated a lot of maintainers during its long lifetime. There was something about rainbow attacks that I was very interested in. Let's see. Besides incorporating assault to protect against rainbow table attacks, do you guys know what that is? Neither do I, but that sounds fun. Let's For reversing cryptographic, usually for cracking password hashes. Tables are used in recovering a plain text password. Okay, so basically it's just like sort of some sort of password cracking scheme. Okay. So, I mean, bcrypt uses a salt also, but it looks like bcrypt over time, the iteration can be increased to make it slower, so it remains resistant to brute force attacks, even with increasing computation power. Okay, do you guys understand what they mean by this? Basically, if you keep asking for the same thing over and over again, it's going to make it increasingly slower the more times you ask.
And you can just, is it also suggesting you can change the salt rate or whatever, like move it from 10 to 12?
It doesn't, no, it doesn't really say that. But it's just the, oh, I see, the iteration count. Oh, so maybe that is what they're saying. When they say the iteration count, do they mean the like the salt iteration count? No, you're probably right about that. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, all right. I feel like, and look, it's an optimized bcrypt with 0 dependencies. So that's another advantage, is it doesn't have dependencies, so you don't have to worry about installing other libraries and them keeping up to date and then having inconsistencies with those other libraries, like we saw with PG Promise and PG, and they had inconsistencies, and then you couldn't use connection strings anymore. You remember that one, Debrina? Yeah, okay. Oh. Yes, I remember connection strings, yes. Yeah, exactly. Dependencies, yes. Okay, so I'm sold. Let's npm uninstall bcrypt. And npm install bcryptjs. And while that's installing, let's put in our daily log. Okay. Okay, cool. So, and now we're going to have to update our code to use bcryptjs. And let's see if there is, okay, so fine, that looks like exactly like what we have. It looks like here is just synchronous usage. I don't see any reason why not to use synchronous usage at this point. I'm getting nods from the back of the room. So just take these and use async.
Because otherwise the application.
And when everybody is logging into our application, then okay. Then what? Denial of service. We're leaving ourselves vulnerable. Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I just missed why you post that.
Not the sync?
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, just like that. I've never used that. Is that regex in my note?
Oh, this here is their fake password. So we're actually gonna replace that with our real password. I think that's like, it looks like bacon, right? Because this is like an N. Yeah. Okay. So, interesting. Okay, so first of all, we have to return this, and that'll make that happy. It doesn't seem to think that bcrypt has gen salt, so okay, fine. And let's see, does it actually have a promise? Because that's a callback based. Let's see if it has a promise based. Okay, so compare looks like it has a promise. It looks like hash has a promise also if the callback has been omitted. So let's try it with a promise instead, because to me promises feel cleaner. I was working with this with my, like every time I work with this, every time I work with the hash and salt, like I just think of hash browns, right? It's like hash and salt. Thank you for the courtesy laugh there. Okay. Okay, we would want to, in general, we would want to do something better than this, but for now, that's what we'll do. Okay, so, and then, actually, I think I'm going to do the implicit return here, and then, so let me just make sure that I'm getting this right. Okay, hash, yeah, okay. So, and then we can catch both of those here. Promises are so much nicer. Okay, so then salt, the bcrypt hash, and then, okay. All right, so we're doing this generate salt, and we're using 10. That's going to give us a salt, and then we're going to run a bcrypt hash on that salt. And then now we have a hash, and now we're going to store that in our database. Now, generally, we store both the hash, well, no, we'll just store the hash here. So, so now, how do we store the hash in our database? Well, actually, we just want to return that hash, which we can do here. Promise that resolves to encrypted version of the password. Fine. So now this is actually going to return that hash, right? Because this is going to run, and it's going to return a promise that resolves to salt. And then this is going to run, and it's going to return a promise that resolves to that hash, which I'm actually now returning from the entire function. Are you with me? That this is somewhat subtle promise stuff.
What's subtle about it?
That I'm returning that this whole thing returns the promise or the resolution of this promise, which is the hash.
So the encrypted password function doesn't return a promise, it returns the actual.
No, it does. It returns a promise, but the fact is that I don't have to do another .then here and say hash return hash, right? Because if I return this, then it's actually just going to return the hash. And because I don't actually want to do anything with the hash here, I just want to return it so that in my add user, I can import it here, which I am, and then I'm going to do the encrypt password, and now I'm going to use the hashed password here. You with me? Yeah. Brittany, do you have any questions on that?
That makes sense.
Okay. So let's actually try it. So let's see. So we need a name, an email, a password, and a primary city. So let's go into Actions and Node Add User. Oh, it doesn't like it. Okay, invalid connection details. Undefined. Okay. Where would you? I should work more on debugging here. Where would you go? The file where we defined the connection details, which would be, in this case, db.js. And it looks like, oh, it's using this process.env. And because I didn't actually require .env, it's, so this is counting on the fact that there's going to be an environment variable that has my DB URL, and there isn't. So, fine. You need a DB URL, I'll give you a DB URL. Let's see. So, I'm going to say export DB URL equals Rome, or Postgres Rome. And then I'll run node add user.js. Still don't like it. Yeah.
So elsewhere when we're connecting to our database, we have to put in the user and the port.
Yeah. So basically I'm defaulting to I'm falling back to all of the defaults for those. So the default user is whatever user, this logged in user is, right? The default password is whatever, I don't even think this user needs a password. The default host is localhost, right? I could even just use the default database, which is Bonnie, right? Or in this case, presenter.
Huh. Okay.
So if I, for example, just said connection string, or what if I did this, and I'll comment that out, I think I would end up in the presenter database.
Oh, it just takes a
Default everything.
Okay.
For now, just because I just want to test, I don't want to deal with all this environment stuff right now. I just want to test my hashing. So I'm going to do just PGP. I'm just going to bypass the environment variable stuff for now. Yeah.
Doesn't that ternary set the URL as oh no, okay, so you weren't running it as a tab.
No, in fact, if we oh no, actually you're right. I did have, like, node-env is set to test right now in my. That's interesting. So that's probably why when I set DB URL, it didn't do anything. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm just gonna bypass all of that.
Now I want to see if it works. If you do.
Okay, okay, okay. Good sleuthing. Good sleuthing. Okay. So let's see what happens in the database. Wait, now I'm confused. Okay, so still we're using the regular database and not the Roam database. Oh, and oh, interesting. Why did it just I wanted, oh right, no. What I really wanted to do is so many things I want to do. Okay, so first let's actually use, well, let's see. The test database, it looks like it's got all its stuff. So let's actually, we might as well just use the test database here. So I'm going to change this to Roam test. And then in add user, there are a bunch of different ways to do this, but I think right now I'm just going to say in add user, I am going to, at the bottom, just run. And so I'm going to run it with name, email, password, and primary city. Okay, and we'll do a dot then. Try that. Cannot read property then of undefined. Okay, where do you go from here?
Are you explicitly returning from?
That was exactly my same thought, Brittany. So it sounds like this is resolving, or it sounds like this is undefined, right? So it doesn't sound like I'm returning something. Once I put the encrypt password. Yeah, so Brittany gets the gold star. Yeah, that's right. All right, so Brittany.
Can I see the connection table?
The connection table?
Okay, connection file.
Sure. It's db.js.
So we're just using Roam now?
Oh, right. So we didn't. All right. So we didn't actually test to see whether the Kelsey theory was correct, but the Kelsey theory still is correct. Okay. So far, yeah, I know. We just have a couch full of incredibly intelligent people over there. Okay, and that certainly is not the password I gave it, right?
Ah, nice.
So cool. This is the time when you want to commit because you're like, okay, shit works. So, but before I commit, I'm going to just remove that testing. Remove this here. Oh, and actually, I do want to make sure that, I just want to make sure that my test, all right, let's see. That's fine. So for now, I just want to make sure that my tests all run before I commit, because I went to all the trouble of making those tests and might as well. Okay, so create, or let's actually, you know, sometimes I look at my Git log to see what my last, all right, work in progress, add password encryption. So create encryption function. Okay, now let's work on the compare function. And then we'll go with the testing. Okay, so the compare function, what should the compare function take?
The password from the database and
Yeah, so right, like a raw password and a hashed password.
Couldn't it just get the hashed password within the function?
yes. Wait, so you just hash.
Well, you could get it within the function, but then you would need to know what the user, you'd need to know the user's ID to get it from the database, right?
Didn't they give you that? Like wherever you're going to be calling this function, it'll do
Yeah, so it's actually a design decision, Kelsey, whether to look up the password from the database within here or just compare it. And I'm going to make the design decision just to compare it. So I'm going to say this is a string. This is a string, and it's what should the promise resolve to? Yeah.
Ah.
Okay, cool. So let's take a look at bcrypt's usage. So bcrypt compare, okay. So we're comparing their bacon password with the hash, and then the result. So really, we're just going to return bcrypt compare raw password, hashed password. Is it worth having a function for this? Another design decision, right? Because we could just run this line itself.
There are other times.
Well, I mean, it's just, I mean, anytime we needed to compare a password, we could just run this rather than this. I kind of like the abstraction and only having to import bcrypt into this file, right? It's a design decision, again. Okay, so let's go back to, no, not add user. Let's go back to our test. And here, it adds the encrypted password to the database. So actually here, for this test, I think I want to just check to see, so for it adds the encrypted password to the database, I'm going to expect new user.password to be a string. That's just, it added something to the database. And now I'm going to make another test for it adds, do I need to? Maybe I won't make another test. It adds the correct encrypted password to the database. And now instead of expecting it to be a string, up here, I'm going to say Is that what we called it? I think so. So now I'm going to say expect can you say to be true? So encrypt the password. I heart Jane Schmo. So checking the password with the encrypted password, because remember, the encrypted password is what gets returned. You with me, Mira? Okay. And not Celeste. See, look, you're so Celeste-like. I called you Celeste. Yeah, Brittany, you with me? Or okay. Okay, so expect this to be true. So let's see how that does. Uh-oh. Check password is not a function. Oh, let's see. I did, but I think I did not export it. Oh, or yeah, it was the wrong thing. Compare password. Is that, I don't know Science of the Lands well enough. What's no, like just the it, like it. Oh, yeah. That's good. That's good. Yeah. So Mocha is our little person at the bottom of the well, and we're just telling it what to do. It's terrible. Okay.
Mocha is the cereal. That's actually a good analogy.
Yeah.
I was going to say Mocha is a serial killer, and our function is
I'm always going to hear.
I know. Thanks, Kelsey. You've basically ruined us for life. Oh, expected nothing to be true.
What?
Okay. So that's interesting. Where would you guys go from here?
Okay, wait. Add the correct password to the database. So it's comparing it. Can I see the function?
Mm-hmm. Which function?
The test. Anyone you got. So compare password user.password is resolving to undefined or nothing.
I don't see where the password is coming.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So the plain password is coming from up here. I see the problem. What's this?
A function. Yeah.
You're close. It's an asynchronous function, and this is a promise, right? So I'm expecting a promise to be true.
Oh, is that?
And in fact, I think it's like not even. I think it's not even like running this, because it's asynchronous. So what I really want to do.
Let's put in a callback function. Because it waits for that to resolve.
Right? I made a classic newbie mistake trying to test an asynchronous function as though it was synchronous.
You have to return that? I don't.
Yeah.
I do have to return it. Why?
Because it doesn't return anything on its own.
But it's running.
Oh wait, no. Because you need it to finish running, and then you can.
But it should do that anyway with that, right?
No, Brittany's right about it finishing running. So let's see if this works. So let's do some testing of our tests.
I think that'll work.
Okay, so now let's see. Yeah, I'm going to in just a minute. Okay. Great. Now, Brittany, what's going to happen?
It's going to say that it resolves to an object again. It's going to fail. I think it's going to fail.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think it will say that cannot read result at Zen of undefined or something like that.
That's what I think too.
What do you
But
think,
then,
Kelsey?
Well, I just thought that then means it's waiting for the result. It's like,
It's quite the opposite.
oh,
Okay, so the way Mocha works, so my guess, and you guys have probably figured out that I am not the know-it-all that I pretend to be, but my guess is that it will pass.
Oh, but it's a false pass.
It will pass, and then we'll get some error about a catch.
Ah.
All right, so let's see that.
Unresolved promise.
Yeah.
Unhandled promise. Yeah.
Okay, so sometimes I do know what I'm talking about. So why? Why did it do that? How did I know that was going to happen? And and because and why does this little return make a difference between a lovely failed test, which is what this should be because true is not a fish, right? And this horrible past test with like errors all over the place.
Because that function, it resolves to true or false, but it doesn't, if you're not explicitly returning anywhere, then you're not passing anything to the result, to the then state.
It fails, so I'm not passing anything to the then statement anyway.
Is it
No, that's not true.
Is it because then is just not asynchronous? It doesn't wait for that.
It doesn't wait for that. And why does not waiting for that give us a false positive?
Then it goes straight to the next test.
Ah, it goes straight to the next test. And why does that mean there's a false positive?
Because it's true, because it's a true feed or something.
How does it determine whether or not the test passes?
By whether or not it failed.
Okay, your Celeste badge has been revoked.
I was going to say, if the function doesn't, the expect function doesn't throw some kind of error like immediately or something.
Ah, yeah, no. Okay, you said it fails if it doesn't pass, I believe is what. Okay, so yes. So basically what happens is it runs all of this code, and if no exceptions are thrown, then it's like, cool, it passed. And if you don't put the return in there, then it runs all of this code, but it does not wait for it to complete before it decides whether or not any exceptions have been thrown. So it runs this asynchronous code. It doesn't wait for it to complete. It's like no exceptions were thrown, moving on. Yeah. And then later, when the code actually, when the code is actually run, then it's like, sorry, here's an exception for you, but it doesn't matter as far as Mocha is concerned, as far as the test goes. Because Mocha has moved on. Mocha's already determined that this is a passing test.
Like, semi-related question. Is there any advantage to using try as promised?
You know, there probably is, but I've never used Chai as promised. I just do this instead.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think maybe there's not.
Yeah.
All it does is like you still have to put the return, and then you have to add eventually.
Oh, it eventually, yeah. Yeah, I mean, this makes sense to me, so I like it. But it is the reason that you always need to, especially when dealing with promises, make sure you're not getting false positives. That's what red-green testing is about. Make sure that you can get a red result. Make sure you can get a failing test and then a passing test.
When you're doing an interview test and just hypothetically says like test it so that you know that like it'll fail under certain conditions and it'll succeed under certain conditions. Does that mean write two different tests, or just write one that will fail under certain conditions and not under other conditions?
I can field this one if you like.
Okay.
It's referencing just both cases, the red and the green. So it's saying make sure you have a test that passes when it should be passing. Make sure you have a test that fails when it should be failing.
Okay, so it's
really just one test. And there are a lot of different ways you can test this. So if you're if you were doing something over the network, you could test to make sure your test fails by just like turning off Wi-Fi, or you could kill the server or something like that. And if you were testing a database function, you could insert an error into the database function. You could stop your database. You could do any number of things just to make sure that you're getting both the passing and the failing.
And
Can't break it.
Yeah, exactly.
But like for your final answer, if you say your test is basically that some function resolves to true or something like that, you just want to give it a true case so that the test passes. But the test creator can understand that if you put false in there to break. I mean, it's, you know what I'm saying? Like the test. You have to, like, the grader has to know that, or has to, like, break it himself, like, show that it doesn't. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. So the bottom line is write a good test.
Yeah.
Write a good test that works. And if you do that, it will pass when it should pass, it'll fail.
Yeah. And, I think what the idea is, make sure, like, basically, they want to be able to dock you points if your test would ever have a false positive or if your test would ever have a false negative.
The thing about just like edge cases and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's, I think this is what this term means. Evergreen tests is an expression I've heard used for tests that unintentionally always return a positive result. And you don't want that.
Right.
The whole purpose of writing the test is to give you the information when something fails that it has failed.
Yeah. So that we had that when we took this return out, right? We had a test that was going to pass no matter what, which is not good practice. So okay. So I want to do a commit, but first let's do our squad check-ins. Although the guild is ghost town today.
It is a ghost.
But let's do our squad check-ins, and then let's see. So I'm going to stop the recording, or I'll pause the recording.